into, but maybe we can jump into early.
Fun or interesting stories. Well, the Indige team members were all different, but they were, I mean, you got to remember the Indige team members, most of them, by the time they got to the projects, MACV-SOG, and any of its peripheral projects like PRU or anything else, but these guys had been through, you know, the CIDG, the Mike Force. They, you know, they'd been coming up the levels. So by the time they got to us, they were pretty experienced and had been around, you know, around the block a bit. So, and then we were pretty selective about the guys who we took on. We didn't just take anybody on. They, you know, usually had to be recommended. We kind of kept an eye on them for a while. We had to have them background checking so much as you could. And so by the time they got to our level, they were good guys. They were tough. They were fierce in a fight. And and they'd take you to the villages to whatever, weddings or some shindigs, and do their best to get you drunk on Weiss wine, because they thought that was the funniest thing in the world. See an American walk off the porch on a longhouse or something. But
many a good story in the log houses.
Yeah, interesting. We used to go up to Dock Toe, I'm sure you know, for Bright Light. Mm-hmm. And one time Texas went up there, and there was Bill Spurgeon, me, Ron Maddox. I believe that was just, I think it was just the three of us American-wise. And we took the whole team and we loaded up choppers with all kinds of guns and ammo and stuff we were going to carry up there. And when we were up in Dock Toe, we usually, Bill and I particularly, wore tiger stripe pants, black jungle sweaters, and we had the CAR-15s. We, of course, no markings, ranks, names, nothing. And of course, CAR-15s were kind of unique to us then, and all our gear looked odd. So, but there was a MACV compound not too far away, a few miles away, up on the hills, in the hills, and we used to go up there for breakfast. So we'd hop in a Jeep, drive up there, and the guys at the gate would kind of give us the eyeball and let us through, and we'd go into the mess hall. And it was kind of funny because we'd sit over by ourselves, and all the other people in the MACV mess hall would be, you know, whispering back and forth and pointing at us. That was always kind of amusing. But
I've got a really interesting, and I've always, and especially since y'all it wasn't around all that long. We didn't talk much about CRP. Jason was wanting to know a little bit more on the CRP, other than if you know, besides the Sante situation and stuff like that.
Well, the CRP was made up, as I said, of the three teams, California, Hawaii, and Texas. And then we had a mortar section, which was Joe Walker's little 60 millimeter mortar. And we had, I'm trying to remember the armament. We carried about 6 RPDs. We had four or five guys that were RPG gunners, 4 to 6 RPG gunners. We had, I forget how many, we had a number of, well, we had several Molten Yards that were dedicated M79 gunners. And we had probably a dozen or 15 CAR-15s that were outfitted with grenade launchers. Everybody carried a teardrop round for the 60 millimeter mortar. So we had plenty of those. When the teams, because let's see, there's 12, 24. We would, when the team was fully together, it was about 50 people. All three teams, plus the little headquarters element, plus the little medical section, plus the mortar section, and so forth. When we, like I said, the only thing we carried was ammo and weapons. That was it. And personal first aid and stuff in the medical section. We didn't carry any food or anything else like that. If it didn't blow up or shoot, we didn't carry it. So it was a very focused sort of a group. Does that answer the question?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. We've got a few more, and then I've got some interesting questions that I haven't seen pop up yet, and they might. Let's see. I don't know if you dealt with anybody up north, but we'll see if we'll see for Zero Mike Foxtrot. If you can see that. If not, I'll read it aloud.
Yeah. I don't know who they were, but I don't know. I know Nick, but I don't know who they were.
Yeah, you got to remember, guys, he was at CCC, and CCN was way up north. The CCC guys were in the Central Highlands, messing with those tribes and interacting with them. They weren't they weren't close to the coast up there, so that was a whole different ball of yarn. But
the only time I was up north was when we launched from NKP, but that was the only times I was up north.
Oh, would you care to talk a little bit about the NKP launching process, because that's pretty unique?
Well, NKP was kind of unique, yeah. It was kind of funny in a way. I mean, when we would fly in, we'd fly in a C-130 Blackbird, and it would park down at the end of the runway, and then they came down there with what looked like a big, you know what a big bread truck looks like, like Wonder Bread or something like that. Well, they back it up to the ramp, and they had these things they'd swing out, and everybody'd run into the back of the truck. And then between the driver's section, where the driver and the passenger sat, they had this piece of plywood that was sticking up so nobody could see in the back. And the main concern was the molten yards, right? I mean, they saw Americans all the time in Thailand. But the molten yards was a different story. And so they had a special compound that we'd go there. It was the building was kind of a U shape with an interior courtyard that was fenced off. And then they had a big, I don't know how high it was, 8 foot or so chain link fence with concertina razor wire around it. And that's where you'd hang out until, you were inserted. But you'd go to briefings, and everything out of Thailand was run by the Air Force. So you inserted with Jolly Green Giants, and it was a very different. The first time I ever went to a briefing over there was very different, because it was like they were presenting to me, and they had these color photographs, high res for the time, color photographs of the LZs from multiple directions, looking west, looking east, looking south, and so on, all in color. And they're saying, we'll load up this way, and we'll do this, and we'll, and then they turned to me and they said, what's the latest you'd want to be on the ground? And I said, I don't want to be on the ground any later than, at the very latest, 3 o'clock, earlier if possible. So, and this is like a major or a lieutenant colonel asking me about this. And they're saying, okay, and they're making notes and everything else. So I thought, wow, this is great. So, but it was quite an experience, very different from in Vietnam.
That's a CCC Hatchet Force member, Mr. Terry. He was saying the CRP sounded like a mini Hatchet Force
It,
team.
yeah, it was. Except, as I said, it was designed to be on the ground for hours as opposed to days.
Days.
You know, I mean, and it was to be used for specific targets,
Strategics.
for very targeted purposes. And unfortunately, we didn't get to. We got called up on standby one time for a POW thing, and apparently a POW had escaped a hospital in Laos, an Air Force guy, they said. And he was running around, and the NVA were chasing him, and the PATH at Laos were chasing him, and he was running around. So they put us on. We were up at Dock Toe, and they put us on standby. We had the Air Force choppers, their gunships, everything was there. We were ready to go on a moment's notice. The only thing that was missing was they were trying to grab this guy so he could tell them where the hospital was. All right. Because the intent was to hit the hospital, you know, just go directly in on it. And they chased him for, I don't know, a couple days. And they were up there in helicopters and O1s and O2s with bullhorns, you know, calling out, and you know, and
Wow.
they never caught him. They figured the NVA scarped him back up, and figured he was so freaked out that he was running from everybody, you know.
I can't even imagine. God Almighty. Wow, this is interesting. This is from a poster, SOG in Vietnam, Retracing the Past. Howdy, America from Saigon. Just wanted to let y'all know that there's still plenty of people here who think of y'all with nothing but gratitude. Nice. My mother-in-law being one of them, saying thank you to you, Mr. John.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Very kind words. Thank you for that. Thank you. Let's see here. Here's an interesting one. I always enjoy seeing what those of you that have made the transition from being a 1-2, 1-1, or what have you to a team leader. There's actually two good questions, but here's one of them. Oh, no, that's another one. Right here. There we go.
That's an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of when you're in a job or what, you know, not necessarily military or anything, but you know, and you have a boss, you say, oh, well, you know, you can hardly wait till you make the next step. You know, I can do that. You know, I am. So suddenly, you know, I became a 1-0, and we got a mission, and we went out, we trained, you know, prepped for it and everything. We went out, got on the ground, we're all hunkered down, and I'm looking around, and I looked, and I realized everybody was looking at me, you know, waiting for me to say what to do. So I thought, okay, you know, so we went off, and you know, everything was fine. But I came back, and I thought, God, what if I did the wrong thing? What if I told them to go the wrong way? Well, you know, what if I'd gotten them all killed? You know, and I don't even remember who it was, but his words or something I remembered all the rest of my life. We were sitting at the bar in Pontoon, and I was telling him about it. I said, man, all of a sudden I realized all these people were dependent on, you know, their lives depended on my decision. And he said, let me tell you something. He said, don't worry about it. He said, the worst thing is not to make a decision. He said, right or wrong, you have to make a decision. And he said, your people are well trained enough, and you have to have enough faith in them that in most cases, even if you make the wrong decision, they'll fight through it, you know. But he said, the worst thing is not making a decision. And that's followed me through all my life. And I've sat in corporate boardrooms and watched these guys getting, you know, collectively millions of dollars a year, and they can't make a decision. they're passing it around like a hot potato, waiting for somebody else to commit, to make a decision. Make a damn decision, you know, right, wrong, or indifferent, but make a decision. You know, that just has always frustrated me so much.
And the good second part with that, did you have any what personally what let you know you were ready to lead, to be a 1-0?
You know, I never went
the Indige, or
I don't know. I always had a good relationship with the Indige. I think it was made by somebody else, frankly.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, I never went to 1-0 school.
Wow.
I don't know how I missed out on that, but I just was running all the time on, you know, and just so somebody at some level said, we think he's ready, and Bill Spurgeon said, I'll take him. And then, as I said, there was that overlap period before he left and right after I got there, and I guess I passed muster.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, like you said, someone had faith in you. And the second part, you know, you're not the first. You know, you won't like me saying this, but wonderful 1-0 that didn't go to 1-0 school and what was one of the best, you know, 1-0s that SOG ever had. That, you know, in my opinion, and probably numerous other people's opinion, you know, you got 1-0. Well, you got 1-0 school, much like Ed Walkoff and the numerous other guys from your 1-0s and on the ground running missions. So I've always been curious about that, how guys like y'all ended up missing it. But there again, y'all are running recon.
Yeah, I remember, you know, one time when Ruff wasn't there and Mike Wilson and I were the only one there. And it was in a period we were very short-handed. For some reason, there were a ton of missions, and Wilson and I were, you know, it was kind of like brief a mission, prep for it real quick, go on the mission, come back, debrief, take a couple days, prep for the next mission. And it was just going like that, you know, one after another. And it was almost a blur. It was and in fact, and then when things started calming down a little bit, the recon company commander, what the hell was his name? Anyway, he came over. We were getting off a helicopter, just getting back, and we were frazzled. I mean, we were stretched thin like piano wire, and he said, "I'm sending you two on a CCK flight. You guys need to take a break." So we said, "Okay."
I can't pass up that. That's and could you actually explain to the?
Turned out to be the shortest CCK flight on record.
Would you mind explaining, because we've actually never had anybody actually go on, or I'm sure they've gone on but not actually mentioned CCK flights. Could you explain a little bit about CCK?
Yeah, CCK stood for a place in Taiwan, an air base in Taiwan that was south of Taipei. I can't think of what the actual name was, but the Blackbirds, the C-130s and whatnot that flew for SOG, periodically had to go back there for maintenance. So there was a deal cut that said that whenever they went back, a certain number of SOG people would go with them. And what they did was they cut us TDY orders, authorizing civilian clothing, and you know that, and the orders were cut in such a way that they were open-ended, because they, as long as the plane required some maintenance, then you were on leave in Taipei. Mm-hmm. And then when the maintenance was done, then you came back. Usually it averaged, I don't know, 6 or 7 days, I think. Mm-hmm. I remember the longest I think I recall hearing, there was one that was there almost a month.
Ooh.
Which was, and ours ended up being about 3 or 4 days, I think.
Wow. Wow. I mean,
But it was
that
nice.
that
It was a nice break.
absolutely, absolutely. When I first heard about those and saw some pictures of some of the recon guys sleeping on the way to Taiwan, I was like, oh, that looks like that's a little interesting tidbit. And
Yeah.
I've got this photo up, and I'm actually looking at one of another photo that I've got a question about, but this is from one of the viewers, and this is I get this asked a lot, but you can answer this better than anybody. Finally,
So very few people wore tiger stripes. I used to wear tiger stripes, the pants to sleep in. And then we used to wear tiger stripes, around the compound or out on bright light maybe, but never wore tiger stripes uh, in in the field. What we did was uh, we wore customized jungle fatigues that were tailored. We had extra pockets on them with zipper and all over the place that tucked in instead of hanging loose. And uh, we had a bunch of different spray paints, black, green, browns. Uh, so what we'd do is a person would stand there and we'd take these spray paints and spray them as you turned around. And then you'd put on your equipment and they'd spray that, your rifle, your harness gear, everything. And it actually made better camouflage. I could show you something. I don't know if you'd be able to see it, but those, you can see there a pocket sewn on my shoulder there that had a zipper on it. But all that different shadings, that's all different spray color paints. Let me see if let me get something.
absolutely, absolutely. This is the guys got very creative. I've got some photos. Jim Shorten's got some guys that he literally they just lay out and would spray paint some really cool patterns. And I'll show y'all some of his local patrol gear. I've got a question I've got to ask, but this is before he's got his Browning right here.
Did you see that at all?
Yes, we can. Let me put that on the full. Look at that. There you go. Oh yeah. Wow.
That's my loadout.
Wow. Okay, guys, you were seeing it right there. That's what he was wearing, and that, not the exact, of course, but that's as close as you're gonna get to seeing what a authentic SOG loadout looks like right there in person.
So when I put that set of web gear and everything together, I was having a custom sheath made for a karambit knife for the up here. And so this guy said to me, who was making it out of Kydex, he said, "Oh, you're going to have to bring your web gear." And I said, "I got to see how it fits and everything." So I took that set of web gear in, and this was a tactical shop, police shop on one side, tactical and guns on the other. I carried it in and caused a little bit of a stir. A bunch of people gathered around and they're looking at it and they're saying, "Oh." One guy came up and he said, looked at it and he said, "Oh, that's old school."
That's you've definitely got some and as a matter of fact, one of the viewer that was a question early on your use. Would love to see that question. Yep, I've just gotten to that. There's several guys or I know there's one guy in here that is doing RT Texas reenactment recreations, and he's watching. But there was another question that I was about to ask. Oh no, yes, actually, I was going to ask about this because I don't have the downloaded thing. Let me pull this photo down to where you can see the full thing.